Hi folks, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and in this video we're going to do it's like a messenger laptop style bag. I really like this. I guess we should call it the soft-sided briefcase, really. I experimented with a couple of different designs. This is actually not even the final design, just because I ended up not liking this closure hardware. It's a really cool hardware and all, but for a soft-sided bag, it just doesn't work well. I'll show you. Aha! It falls open. So we ended up just replacing that with a strap and a buckle. Looks real nice. But anyway, this one is made out of our embossed elephant. It's a cow print or cowhide that's embossed to look like elephant. And I mean, fake elephant or not, I really just love the texture and the color and all that. So anyway, but the bag has two big front pockets, big enough for cell phone chargers, things like that. Two large interior pockets right here. And then if you flip it around on the back, it has an optional back pocket right here. And I'll tell you this, I made one of these years ago, and I used it to travel in my military days when I traveled a lot. I used it a lot going through airports and stuff like that. And when you have a buckle on the front, it takes a while to get in and out of it and everything. And if you're standing at the ticket counter trying to get your papers taken care of and stuff like that, sure is easy to have one of these back pockets here where you can just slide your stuff in there and get the heck on. So, highly advised that you use that you cut out an extra piece, and we'll talk about that when we go to cut out pieces. But cut out an extra piece and use it for this back piece, and you'll just absolutely love how easy it is to have that little pocket there. Other than that, we've got a handle here on the top. We're going to talk about how to make that, and then a shoulder strap with a matching shoulder pad on it, to match the rest of the bag. So, we are going to get into that. This was our mystery box that shipped on February 1st. I do realize it's the end of February now. We had for lack of a better word, we had Snowmageddon, I think they've been calling it here in Texas. Texans are not used to the weather that we just had. It was 5 degrees at where we live. There was about 1.5 inches of ice and snow on the ground, mostly ice. I mean, just like a sheet of ice. And I know that folks that are used to stuff like that are like, well, what's the big deal? Texans don't have warm clothes. We don't have snow tires. We don't have snow chains. We don't have snow plows. We don't have salt for the roads. We don't have lots of stuff. So, the state shut down. Anyway, all that to say this, I'm so sorry that this video did not get made. Had I realized that we would have been stuck at the house for a whole week, I would have brought all this home and made a video over the course of a week. Heck, I might even learn to edit the dang thing in that amount of time. So anyway, without further ado, here we are. Alright, so in the mystery box, we had, this was actually the most expensive mystery box we've ever done. And we had it to where there were two choices. You could get what we would call the standard box or the deluxe box. And basically the deluxe box, you would have gotten like a really nice, one of our higher end leathers as far as what to make the bag body out of and stuff like that. Like this one's a bison. It would have gone out in the deluxe box, but this is the one I chose for me. The reason I chose it is honestly not because it was the best, but because it was the worst. The grain pattern is not very consistent throughout it. Some of it has tiny, tiny little cracks and pores, and then some of it has gigantic ones. And so I don't want a customer to end up with that. I would rather me work it, because that way I know how to make that type of stuff match up and hopefully look okay. And if not, well, it's my bag. I don't care. So anyway, in the box was a whole side of leather, and that should be enough to maybe even make 2 bags if it was a big enough side of leather. There was a little hardware kit in there, and then there was a strap that's long enough to make the little handle and the shoulder strap for the bag out of it, and then the paper pattern. My paper pattern is sitting under all the pieces that I've cut out here. Okay. And I'll be perfectly honest, guys. I can easily show you how to cut this stuff out. But we ordered a set of clicker dies for this bag, and I wanted to test them out and make sure they were good and accurate to size. So that's why this bag is already cut out, because I've been over in the clicker room and I cut out all this using our new clicker dies. Reason being is because we would love to offer this as a class or a kit or something in the future, and I just figured it's a nice one to have clicker dies for. So we're going to go over all the parts of the bag, all right? And let's just start with the biggest part, because when I cut it out, that's what I do. I cut out all the largest parts, then move to the second largest part, then the third largest part, and so on. And that way, as you get down to smaller bits and pieces of leather left over, you're cutting out things that can be cut out of those tiny areas. If you just go to town cutting out all this little stuff and then you find out you don't have enough room to cut out the big stuff, not good. Okay, always start with your biggest pieces and work your way around. It also helps if you can. I would take a couple of file folders, and like this piece, there's 4 of them. I'd take a couple of file folders and put them out there and, make 4 of them and set them all over the side. And that way you can kind of arrange them how you want and figure out how to get the best yield for your leather. This leather right here, we did have it on our website. I'm thinking we still do. I don't know. Anyway, this stuff's not cheap. I think it's $125 for a side, and the side's not very big. So, yeah. And, one of the goals that we have is to get the most yield that we can out of it. So, all right. We're going to start with the biggest piece. It says main bag body. Cut front, back, center divider, and optional back pocket. That was the one we talked about in the very back there. So you're going to cut either 3 or 4 of these. I'm going to do that pocket. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, the cool thing is, let's say you have some undesirable spots on your leather. Okay? You can hide those either inside the bag or inside of a pocket. All right? So on the back part of the bag, you've got 2 pieces of leather butted up against each other. All right, there they are. And unless someone opens this up and looks down in here, they won't see that there's a little bitty scar or maybe even a tiny hole in that little piece of leather, because it's hidden. It's on the inside. So that's where, like I said, I took the less desirable of these bison pieces, and I took it so that I could... Like this one, this is the ugliest of all the pieces. Okay, and the reason I call it ugly, I think it's beautiful. I love the texture and everything, but over here, big cracked appearance. Over here, tiny cracked appearance. So that'll be an inside piece. All right. So that way the whole bag flows together and doesn't look like it's all mismatched of leather. Okay. All right. So that was the biggest piece right there. After that, the next biggest piece is the main bag flap. Now, it says cut 1 or 2 if you wish for this to be more rigid. The very first one of these I made, I did not line the flap. And honestly, it's just a big floppy, jumbly mess. I absolutely hate it, but Janie Sue wanted it, so she carries it. She's not here right now, so I don't have it to show you. But what I'm talking about is this right here. This should have some rigidity to it. It should have some form to it, okay? Because how her bag is when it's open, or, well, even when it's closed, like that can just fold back like that, or whatever. And it doesn't say professional on it, okay? So, that's why I cut 2. I'll glue them together. The bag flaps, or the pocket flaps, exact same reasoning, we would do that. Okay, so these are lined. I've lined them with some busted up veg tan. See, that's what I do with ugly veg tan. Make my practice bags. So anyway, these are lined, so they're nice and rigid, and they don't flop around, and they don't, just look all wishy-washy or whatever. So I did cut 4 of those. I got 2 mains and 2 backs, and I will glue those together and trim them and sew them during the process of making the bag. Gusset pieces. We needed 6 of these. Okay, this gusset piece is going to go all the way around the main body. And rather than cut out 2 gigantic pieces that would have gone the entire side of leather, which creates a lot of waste and a lot of problems, we just cut it into 3 pieces, and we will overlap them and sew them here in a little bit. And then those 3 pieces will go all the way around the bag. Okay, but we needed to do that twice because there's the middle of the bag and then gussets on the front and back side of it. So there we go. We have 6 of those pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I paid a lot of attention in Sesame Street. Oh, and I live in Texas. So, a little bit of Spanish here. All right. Main front pockets for the bag. There's 1, there's 2. That is all we need. The gussets for the front pockets. We could have done the exact same thing and cut that down into a couple of different pieces and all that, but it's really not that big a deal since it's only in, I think it's like 1.25 inches wide, maybe just 1 inch. These 2 little bad boys right here. What these do is hold our straps on our bag. Look at that. All fancy and stuff. Okay, and it covers the end of our strap hanger, I like to call, and just gives it a more finished look than that piece of leather that's folded up underneath there. Okay. So we got 2 of those, 1 for each side. And then we have these right here. One of them is where the handle sews onto the top of the bag, and the other one we will use for part of the shoulder strap. The shoulder strap will run through it, but it'll actually have a bottom piece sewn on it. But first I'll glue it to it, cut around it, sew it down, all that. Anyway, all in upcoming video segments. Okay, now I am done with my pattern, so I am going to take it off the table. Now, if you don't have a very expensive set of clicker dies to make this bag, I totally understand. You have a paper pattern. Take this paper pattern, glue it to, I mean, you can use cereal boxes, you can use beer boxes, you can use, regular old cardboard, normally stuff like that. I would use the spray, matter of fact, there it is right there. 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. Can be found at Home Depot, Lowe's, any kind of store like that, home improvement stores, hardware stores, whatever. Take this stuff, spray it on the back of your pattern, spray it on a giant piece of cardboard, stick it down. I am pretty sure if you order the Papa John's biggest pizza that this would fit on 1 pizza box when it was totally unfolded. I would ask them for an extra pizza box. Don't use the greasy one to glue your pattern to. It just catastrophic. Ask me how I know. So, I did leather work in the barracks too. Alright, so anyway, I am done with my pattern now. There we go. Alright, so what is the next step, Aaron? Now, you can do a lot of skiving on this bag, but the good news is you don't have to. Unlike a bag that's turned right side or turned sewn inside out, then turned right side out, like the Mansack messenger bag that we did, we don't have to skive every single flippin' surface. Okay, but that being said, there are some surfaces that need to be skived. Okay, when we sew these 3 together to make 1 gusset, we're going to overlap these about 3/8 of an inch, okay? And we need to lightly skive both sides of where that's going to fold to sew together, okay? Now, once this is sewn together, we can wrap it around one of our main body pieces of the bag and see where the corners are going to be, and then we only have to skive it on those corners. Now, that being said, you can skive the entire piece if you just really enjoy skiving, or you have an NP4 skiver or something cool like that. You can skive the entire piece and it'll work great. But the good news about this bag is you don't have to. So all of you that get mad at me because of all the skived projects that we've been doing lately, you can not be mad at this one if you choose not to be. Okay? And yeah. So, we have to sew those together. Now, granted, I'm about to pull my NP4 skiver over here, and I'm going to skive all those pieces. All right? But, at a very minimum, you need to skive just a little bit, about 3/8 of an inch back on the ends, that'll be sewn together of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the exact same on the other 3 pieces like this before you sew them together. Okay? So there was the first 3. Where did the other ones go? There's supposed to be 6. Can you all see it and I'm missing it? Aha! Whew, ball, I'm blind today. Okay, so I'm going to skive those. Other than that, I'm going to pick which one of these main body pieces is going to be my back pocket, and I'm going to skive its top edge so that I can roll it down and sew it and have a nice finished edge on that top pocket. Okay? And that's really it. As far as what has to be skived on this bag, that's it. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I lied. I apologize. When we get the longer gussets for the pockets, we need to do the exact same thing. We have to clip it to the pocket piece, figure out where the corners are, and skive those areas of the gusset piece, both sides, because where it needs to be able to stretch to go around that corner. Okay? Now, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to bring my NP4 skiver over here, and I'm going to skive all these pieces, the ones that need to be skived. Alrighty, so I've got my NP4 skiver over here from the Leather Machine Company. There it is right there. I've done what I always do, and I've cut me a little scrap of this leather to make sure that my skiver's set up just right for what I'm doing. Beautiful. Okay, I am actually going to back it off just a little bit. It skived just a teeny tiny more than I wanted. But for that back pocket piece where I do a rolled edge, that's perfect. Okay, so since I backed it off some, I'm going to run another little bit through there. Alright, and there it is. So it's about a little over half an inch. Oops, sorry, off camera. A little over half an inch wide is the skive. Again, all you have to skive is where it's going to go around the corners and where the gusset pieces are going to sew together. But you can, if you want to, skive the entire gusset pieces. So, I'm going to skive the whole thing. Alright. Now, if you choose to skive the entire thing, you want to leave 4 of them with one side unskived, because those will be the tops of the gussets. The skived side will be what's sewn together at the base of the bag. There we go. Make sure this belt's clearing out down here. If I get too much leather stacked up in there, not good. Alright, so there's 2 of them where I left the top part unskived. Again, I'm going to do that to 4 of them. And then the 2 that'll be on the very bottom of the bag, I'm going to skive all 4 sides of them. Three of them. Alright, so there's my 4 side pieces. Now that means I'm going to use these last 2 as bottom pieces. So I'll skive all 4 sides of those. Oops, see, the bell's getting all full of skive cutoffs there. Normally they fall all the way down, but sometimes they get stuck. Sorry guys, my buddy Greg's calling. He can wait. Greg, if you're watching this, sorry dude. Alright, so there's one of them. 2 of them. Now, I'm going to find the ugliest one, or no, one of the prettiest ones of the back pieces, these solid pieces here. And I'm going to skive across the entire top of it so that it can fold over. Okay? Alright. This one is definitely the prettiest one. So. And again, all I did is I skived all the way across the top, okay, the longest, straightest piece so that it can fold over and sew down, and it'll be nice and pretty like a rolled edge on that pocket, okay? Alright, so that's it. That's all I'm going to skive on this project that I can think of right this very minute. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to take this machine and put it back where I got it, and I'm going to bring over my Class 26 sewing machine because that's what I'm going to use on this project. This project can very easily be hand sewn. However, I don't feel like making you watch me hand sew for 2 days, so I'm going to use a Cobra Class 26 sewing machine and get it all sewn up. Alright, welcome back. So this is one of the reasons I don't like dealing with black leather. Another reason is I just don't like black leather. But it's hard to see on the video, okay? So, I've got my 6 pieces of gusset. And you know what? I'm going to leave them upside down for the purposes of this so that we can see them easier. So what I need to do is create my 2 gussets, okay? And I normally, like, these are the outside edges, and then this one is the center. And I normally sew the outside edge when you're looking at the bag on the outside. I put the center gusset piece underneath the outside edge gusset pieces, okay? So, I'm going to use me some double-sided tape to hold this together while I sew it, because that's what makes it work. Okay. I'm just going to put me a little piece of double-sided tape across both sides of the that center gusset piece, or both ends, sorry. And then I'm going to stick those outsides to it. Again, I'm going to overlap them about 3/8 of an inch or so. Not much more than that because we kind of cut them to fit. But not less than that because you want lots of room to be able to sew the 2 pieces together without missing one of the 2 layers. Okay, so I took the backing off that tape there. And I'm going to lay that sucker across there. Making sure you can put a ruler up to it if you want to, but making sure that it maintains a straight line. You know, you don't want to do it where it's where they're crooked, because then your bag will be crooked. Okay, so I'm gonna, with my nubs of fingernails, because I am a nervous chewer, pull that paper off. Lay that sucker on there. Now I'm just going to go over here and sew those lines together. Okay, I'm going to sew it once there, sew it once there. I could do a fancier edge if I wanted to. I could sew the 2 seams together, then fold them over and sew them down again and all that craziness. It's just not needed. And it creates more bulk. So if you didn't get a chance to really skive these good, then that would create a lot of bulk if you tried to do all that. Okay, so I've got my Class 26 out here. I have done something to it that I never, ever, ever do. It has black thread. Just like I don't like black leather, I don't like black thread. But I'm trying something new. Why not? Life is all about experimenting, right? So, I'm just going to take, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to spin this around so I can get the needle closer to the edge. Fold that up a little bit there. Alright, I'm just going to use the very edge of my presser foot here as my guide, or sorry, my center foot. Okay, I'm going to go backwards a couple of stitches. And then I'm going to run my stitch. Back stitch at the end. run that thread, and I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other piece of gusset that I've got sitting over there. Okay. So now I'll fold this side up so that I can put this end under there. Again, I'm going to start with my back stitch, go backwards a couple so I can lock it in. And then back stitch at the end. All right. So there we go. Got that one all sewn up. Again, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to do the exact same thing and make the other long gusset up. And then we'll move on to the next step, which would be putting pocket gussets on. Okay. So, bear with me. When I come back, the other gusset will look just like this. Alright folks, I apologize. To do this next part I did have to, I went ahead and skived these two long gusset pieces for the pockets. Again, I apologize. I was supposed to do that when I had the skiver out. You don't have to skive the entire thing. You can clip it around your pocket. Figure out where your corners are. Mark from about there to there on the gusset and skive just that area that would stretch around the corner. And again, you're doing that so it will stretch and bend around that corner like it ought to. I went ahead and skived the entire thing. Matter of fact, how the skiver was set up, it was so wide that it just left a thick strip right there down the center. But what I'm going to do now is grab my glue jar and I'm going to glue the gusset onto the back of the pocket here. Okay, so I'm just going to run me a bead of glue around about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little less, all the way around the back side of the pocket. Well, I'll say all the way around, obviously only on 3 sides. We're not going to glue the pocket shut. Okay, and then I will use that exact same glue and do down one side of this gusset piece. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over here to the edge of my table. A little bit more glue on my brush. Take this over here to the edge of my table and run it just like that. That'll help me get it on there a little bit better. And when I get it on the edge of my table, that's okay. I wait for it to dry up a little bit, and then I just kind of run my thumb along there and wipe it off. If you have a wooden table, that might not be as easy, but the top of this table is cutting board material, and it comes right off of that. Okay. All right, and I need to do that twice. Okay, two pockets. So there was one. Go ahead and do this part of the other one, and then I'll do the other main pocket piece there. Okay. Now I will say this, if I am doing it on the edge of my table like that, I do have to be careful not to lean against the edge of my table until I clean all that off in a minute. And that's normally my issue. Okay, so now I'm going to put it on the back side of this. Got a little bit sloppier than I like to right there, but okay. Alright, so I'm going to let that set up for just a second, and when I come back, we'll press those together. Alright, that's long enough. I'm going to grab my bucket of binder clips here. Alright, and I'm going to start putting one of these gussets together. real simple procedure. I'm just going to take and line up the two glued edges and start squeezing them together down the line. Now, if I had gone too quickly and I don't let the glue dry enough, I'll need these binder clips. But if it seems like the glue's set up enough, then I won't need them. Okay, now when I get to the corner here, I'm going to stretch this gusset piece so that it just naturally rounds that corner. And I'm going to keep the edges lined up as nicely and evenly as I can. Okay, and it'll look like that. Okay, so keep it on going here. I'm back at another corner, so I'm going to stretch it a little bit as I glue it. Okay, and then if you notice, we have leftover. That's okay. We're going to trim that right off. Okay, now while that's laying flat on the back of that, I'm going to lay it down and just trim that straight across, and that'll be that. There we go. Junk. Now, same song, second verse. I've got some glue on the back of this. You can see where it's all shiny right there. Now that that glue is partially dried, all I have to do is just kind of wipe that off, and it just balls up like a booger. And comes right off. But in doing that, I was careless and didn't pay attention to my glued edge here. Let me get that back together like it ought to be. There we go. Okay, I'm to a corner, stretch it around a little bit. Back to the straight of the bottom of the pocket here. Just keeping those edges nice and pressed. The cleaner I can keep these edges now, the less work I'll have to do to straighten them later if they're already straight. If you do not skive at least that little area that goes around that corner right there on the gusset piece, what will happen is the bottoms of these corners will also round out. Okay, because now it's basically distributing that fold, that stressed area between the pocket main piece and the gusset 2. When if you make the gusset edge a little bit thinner by skiving it, then it'll take all the stress of the stretch right there, and you won't have to worry about that. And that's the science behind it. Alright, there it is. Now what I need to do is sew these two pockets. Okay, and I'm just going to sew all the way around those 3 edges right there. And that'll be that. So I'm going to arrange my camera, bring my sewing machine back over. Okay, I'm going to use my edge guide here. I don't really need to, but I do like having the security of it. Okay. I'll grab my 2 threads there, when you start out with a sewing machine, always hold those 2 threads for the first couple of stitches, and that'll ensure that your stitches are getting set nicely. We're going to go backwards first so we can lock it in. Oh, we're also going to turn on the sewing machine. What do you know? One of those days, folks. I've been here too long today. All right. Now I'm just going to go all the way around that pocket piece. Okay, I'm to the corner, and I just have to be careful that where the leather kind of bubbles out underneath there, that doesn't get in the way of sewing. And I'm going to press it down real nice and flat, and you know, try not to sew a bubble into my seam, because that would just be flipping terrible. Okay, so I'm going to go slow. I'm going to sew carefully, and I'm going to keep the bubble out of my seam. These are the kinds of places where hand sewing is really nice, because you don't have that issue. You can control everything. Okay, back in another place. So I'm going to press that bubble up under there good. Okay, back to a straightaway. There we go. One down, folks. I got to do one more though. So there's what she looks like. Okay, and when I turned it over, I didn't sew my bubbles into my backside there. So those will be nice to, we'll stretch those out a little bit, and later on glue those to the front piece of the bag. Okay. Trim off all these. All right. So again, I'm going to do that on the other one as well. But I think that's going to be a decent stopping place for us today, so I can get this video going and uploaded. Again, I apologize so much that this video is so late. I know I seem to be saying that every single month. I am going to make sure that the next video is made before the box even ships. I won't post it, but I'll make it. And that way, we've got it. And we don't have to worry about giant snowstorms and catastrophic events, and I don't know, giant armadillos coming and getting us or something. Who knows what's next nowadays. I was talking to the lady that runs the cafe that I get breakfast at every morning, and she said something about can't wait to get back to normal after the snowstorm, and I was like, what's normal? I haven't seen anything I would call normal in like 2 years now. But anyway, all right. So until next time, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and we're going to get this video uploaded. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your patience.